Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at May Day by George Chapman. We're going from Act 4 Scene 2 today as we conclude the comic hijinks of this play, and we're slowly getting a sense of momentum, and we're hoping that the momentum will now build and carry as we go into the final units of the play. It has been, our notes so far has mostly been fewer words, cut, because there's just an awful lot of dialogue going around, which is otherwise quite a satisfying plot. You can put it down on paper, as we've just been doing off camera, to say what the hell's going on. It looks on paper quite a good plot. It's just not so far really been executed in a way that's really wrung our cockles, as it were. So to find out how it ends, reading today Leonoro and Gaspero is
Mark in the Midwest United States.
Reading Lionello and Lucretia today is
Lois in London.
Reading Angelo and Messenger today is
Alan in Suffolk.
Emilia and Giacomo is
Lynn in the Northwestern United States.
Reading Fannio and Lodovico today is
Aliki in Athens.
Reading Quintiliano and Temperance today is
Lynsey in Scotland.
Reading Lorenzo and Franceschina is
Sarah in Germany.
Reading Aurelio is
Kyle in Tucson.
And reading Innocentio and Honorio is
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm not in any of these places.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions, and I may occasionally leap in because there's a lot of characters in this play, and even though this is quite a big room for us, it just gets messy towards the end, so inevitably people are going to talk to each other by talking to themselves, so that may get confusing, and I will interfere and step in if there is an easy way to make that work. But without further ado, it's straightforward at first. There's only two people on stage. Act 4, Scene 2. There's just been a bit of a ruckus. Quintiliano has found that there's something nasty in his coal shed, and he's up in arms. And yeah, some of the assignations that are currently going on may be unraveling. Act 4, Scene 2. Enter Aurelio and Emilia above.
Dear life, be resolute that no respect, heighted above the compass of your love, depress the equal comforts it retains. For since it finds a firm consent in both, and both our births and years agree so well, if both our aged parents should refuse, for any common object of the world, to give their hands to ours, let us resolve to live together like our lives and souls.
I am resolved, my love, and yet, alas, so much affection to my father's will consorts the true desires I bear to you, that I would have no spark of our love seen till his consent be asked, and so your father's.
So runs the mutual current of my wish, and with such staid and circumspect respects, we may so serve and govern our desires, that till fit observation of our fathers prefer the motion to them, we may love without their knowledge, and the skill of any, save only of my true friend Lodovico.
I wonder where he is.
Not far, I know, for in some place he watcheth to prevent the feared danger of our father's presence.
They retire. Enter Lorenzo and Angelo running.
Stay for the love of your honour, sir.
What? Angelo!
What reason have you to curse them? Has not one of them kept you safe from the shame of the world, as much as a poor disguise might do? But when your ridiculous fears will cast it off, even while it is on, so running through the streets that they rise all in an uproar after you? Alas, what is the poor disguise to blame, sir?
Well, then, fortune is to blame, or something. Oh, come, as thou didst help to daub me, help to cleanse me, I prithee.
Let alone a while, sir, for God's sake. I'll go see whether the captain be gone from home or no.
Out upon that course, Angelo. I am frighted out of it. Come, enter my house, enter.
What? Will you enter your house, sir, before you know who's in it? Keep yourself close and let me first enter and discover.
I know there is nobody.
You cannot know it, sir. I heard even now that divers of the Senate were determined to come and sit in council there.
Oh, a tale, a very tale, Angelo. Enter for the love of heaven. Enter and unsmother me.
Exit Lorenzo into the house.
What shall I do? My poor master is bewrayed. Oh, that same faithless Lodovic could drown the swaggering captain no better in his drunkenness. Alas, how should I salve this?
Exit into the house. Enter Lorenzo and after him Angelo.
How now? Whom do I see? My daughter and a younker together? Passion of death! Hell and damnation! What lecherous Capricorn reigns this unhappy day, old and young in a predicament? Oh, fie of filthy sin and concupiscence! I will conceal my rage a while, that it may break forth in fury. I'll shift me presently. Angelo, and go fetch the provost.
Exit Lorenzo into the house.
Unspeakable madness! Will you forever dishonour your daughter and in her yourself, sir?
Talk not to me. Out upon this abominable concupiscence, this pride of the flesh, this witchcraft of the devil. Talk not to me. Justice cries out on it in the streets, and I will see it punished. Come, good Angelo, to help to shift me.
And exit Lorenzo again into the house.
I'll follow you, sir, instantly. Master! Master!
Enter Aurelio and Emilia above.
Angelo, what news?
Miserable master, cast down your ladder and come down instantly.
Alas, why, Angelo? Is my father coming?
Let's not talk, but come down, I say.
Dear life, farewell. We'll shortly meet again. So parts the dying body from the soul, as I depart from my Emilia.
So enter frightened souls to the low world as my poor spirit upon this sudden doubt what may succeed this danger.
Away! You'll be whipped anon for amorosity. Haste! For shame! Haste! Haste!
Once more and ever fare my dear life well.
Leave your amorous congees and get you in, dame!
Exit Emilia. Aurelio descends.
Sir, you and I will talk as 'twere betwixt the pales. Now, get you and shift you of this suit presently.
Shift me, Angelo? Why, man?
Ask me no questions, but go home and shift you presently. When I've done a little business here within, I'll come and tell you my device. There hath more chance than you're aware of, and that I can stand to tell you. Away, therefore, presently. Go home and shift you.
Very good, sir. I will be ruled by you, and after learn the mysteries.
Exit Aurelio.
Now will I let the little squire shift and cleanse himself without me, that he may be longer about fetching the provost. In the meantime, will I take my master's suit, for which the little squire took note, and put it on my sweetheart, Franceschina, who shall presently come and supply my master's place with his mistress. For the little squire, amazed with his late affrights and this sudden offenseful spectacle of his daughter, took no certain note who it was that accosted her. For, if he had, he would have blamed me for my master. Only the colour of his garment sticks in his fancy, which, when he shall still see where he left it, he will still imagine the same person wears it. And thus shall his daughter's honour and my master's be preserved, with the finest sugar of invention. When the little squire discovers my sweetheart, she shall swear she so disguised herself to follow him, for her love to him. Thou wit of man when it hath the wind of a woman.
And exit Angelo. Is it me or has the play suddenly woken up? It's Act 4, actually, if we add the previous scene, it's the two bouncing off each other are actually really quite nice. That, you know, we have these farcical elements of, you know, the person who was supposed to be kept away drinking came home. He found the person in the coal cellar. He's running down the road now, trying to get into his house. He goes into his house. He finds that his daughter is together with somebody else, and all chaos is now starting to break loose as one plot line now bounces into another in enjoyable fashion. And congees in this context, I think, is just basically all farewells. I think there's a spin to the word, but I can't remember what it is. But in this context, get on with it. Lynn.
Yeah, I'm just confused. I'm sorry. I can't follow what Angelo's talking about there at the end. Aurelio is his master. Is that right? Or no?
Lodovico's his master, I think. Maybe not.
Okay. It looks like Ellen or Sarah can help me.
Sarah.
Angelo is Lorenzo's servant, but he doesn't like him very much at all. That was established right at the beginning of the play. So basically what he's going to do, because this all started because Quintiliano, whatever his name is, the captain, was out drinking. He needed to be out of his house so that the snail plot could happen, and he came home early. So then Lorenzo had to run out of his house and go home to his house, and so he then found Aurelio, and so he found Aurelio and Emilia. So basically, Angelo wants to help out the young. He's Lorenzo's servant, but he wants to help out his daughter, the young lovers. So basically, he's going to get his sweetheart, who is Franceschina, who is also Quintiliano's wife. He's going to get her to come to Lorenzo's house, and he's going to get her to wear the same disguise. That's why he told Aurelio to go home to get the costume off, so Franceschina can wear it, so that basically when he finally gets around to sort of going in and confronting the young couple, Lorenzo will think that it's Franceschina who he saw with his daughter, not Aurelio.
So and the two women together, no harm done. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And also because Franceschina is also the one who Lorenzo wants to have a dalliance with, so he'll think that she's there to see him.
Yes, we may have slightly muddled up who's servant to whom, but who's doing what for whom, regardless of why, is sort of there. It's fiddly, but it doesn't matter. I think at the heat of the moment, I think there is a problem with Angelo's explanation of what he's going to organise there. I think it is a little confusing as he says it, and this is a play that does an awful lot of exposition like this, which isn't necessarily a way of clearing up what's going on, because sometimes the more you try and explain something, the less clear it becomes. It's much easier if you just demonstrate it. This is my note for Chapman throughout this play is, show, don't tell. I'll go to Mark, then Alan, then Lois.
Yeah, I feel like the big part of the confusion here is just that he's not using anyone's names. Little Squire refers to Lorenzo. Why, I don't know. And then my master, Aurelio. But yeah, it's a lot.
Alan.
Yeah, I think basically Angelo is trying to paddling like Billy-O underwater, just trying to keep as many plates in the air as possible.
Yes, I mean one of the problems with this play is that there are so many plot lines, but also there are so many fixers. Sometimes in a play you kind of just want one fixer, because then that fixer has to do all the fixing. But as we've got more than one fixer, it's actually, unless you have a visual signifier, and that's the other problem for us as reading it, is they all have very similar names. It's very confusing to remember who is who at any given moment. Lois.
Yeah, one reason that Lorenzo has been able to, sort of find them together is that Lodovico, who should have been keeping watch, wasn't, because he's off with Lucretia, as far as I can make out. And the other thing is, I think the only way to do that speech of Angelo's is to play it very fast and leave the audience still saying, what?
Yes. So yes, we had Lodovico, who'd basically been sitting outside the house, in theory on guard duty, is sort of Temperance just calls him in, and he goes, "Okay," and we're about to see what happens after that, because that's literally what's going to happen in Act 4, Scene 3. Enter Lodovico and Lucretia with rapiers fighting.
Hold! Hold, I prithee, hold. I yield my rapier, let my submission, my presumption salve.
Ignoble Lodovic, should I take thy life, it were amends too little for the wrong.
Oh, the precious heavens! How was I gulled? Hand, hide thyself for shame, and henceforth have an eye before thy fingers.
Well, do not jest it out, for I protest if this disguise, which my inhumane fate puts on my proper sex, be by thy means seen through by any other but thyself, the quarrel twixt us shall be more than mortal, and thy dishonor to a friendless stranger, exiled his native country to remain thrall to the mercy of such unknown minds as fortune makes the rulers of my life, shall spread itself beyond my misery.
Nay, mix not cause of mirth with passion. Do me the grace t'unfold thy name and state, and tell me what my whole estate may do to salve this wrong unwittingly I did thee, and set the plaintive thoughts of thy hard fate in such peace as my friendship may procure. And if I fail thee, let Jove fail my soul, when most this earth makes it need help of heaven.
In this you more than temper my late rage, and show your virtues perfectly derived from the Venetian noblesse. For my name, it is Lucretio, which, to fit this habit, I turned Lucretia. The rest that rests to be related of my true estate I'll tell some other time, lest now your presence might dumbly tell it, if it should be seen, to all the world, or else make it suspect my female life of lightness. Then, with thanks and vow of all true friendship, for the amends your kindness makes me, take your sword again, and with it, while I live, the power of mine in any honored use you may command. Then, till we meet, and may laugh at this error, I'll once more try the free peace of my chamber.
And exit Lucretia, or should we say Lucretio?
Do so, sweet friend. Plague of Gingerly? Where is that stale and fulsome Gingerly? She brought me to a fury, I'll be sworn, rather than man or woman a flat beating. I found her supposed mistress fast asleep, put her to the touchstone, and she proved a man. He walked, he waked, and with a more than manly spirit flew in my face and gave me such a dash, instead of kissing, of these liquorish lips, that still my teeth within them bleed. I swear.
He spits.
Gingerly, Gingerly, a plague o' you.
He spits again.
Now, how does my lovers on the terrace?
Enter Aurelio with Angelo shifting his apparel.
Hold, take my doublet too, my hat and all, and quickly hie thee to thy suite.
Count, see, sir, see, your proper sentinel, that when you needed him gave you the slip.
Friend Lodovico, by my life, well, welcome to this my father's backside.
Well, sir, well, I would I had kissed you almost your father's backside, so had I never known it.
Life, he faints extremely. He left you even now to purchase him the amorous interview of your fair cousin Lucretia that lives here.
God's me, sweet friend, wouldst thou use such a slight to anyone that lay within my walk? Why was thy mean to her? Who was thy mean to her?
Dame my life, Dame Madam Temperance, the notorious pander.
Swift friend, what a notorious oversight was that, and what a violent injury unto my friend.
A plague upon you both. You scurvy hind, have you no gull but me to whet your wit upon?
My friend a privy lever, I have sworn love might spend all of his shafts at butterflies as well as at his bosom.
It was your fault then, for I've noted a most faithful league betwixt him and his barber now of late. And all the world they see he doth not leave one hair on his smooth chin, as who should say his hapless love were gone against the hair.
Sblood and these rogues knew how I was deceived. They'd flout me into motley by this light.
Well, sir, I ever thought you had the best wit of any man in Venice, next mine own. But now I'll lay the bucklers at your feet.
Pox upon thee, tame your bold-hued tongue, or by the Lord of heaven I'll pull it out.
Oh, my sweet friend, come, I'll know more of this, and tell thee of all our fortune. Hence, good Angelo.
Oh, if this man had patience to his brain, a man might load him till he's smart again.
Exit Angelo.
Patience, worthy friend. He knows you love him for his knavish wit.
And they exit. A little bit of tidying up going on in this scene to a degree. I mean, we start with this sort of revelation. Well, it's not really a revelation; it's already been hinted at. But Lucretia, coming in with sword and Lodovico going, "Oh, sorry, my mistake," and spitting blood, and then the others come on and go, "Where were you? You were on guard. Look, we're having to do costume changes because of your mess." So yeah, there's a certain amount of just sort of tidying up and moving counters around the board here. Some of this might be trimmed back, and more backside jokes. I mean, it's just like the never-ending arse jokes in this play. It just doesn't end. Lois.
Yeah, I'm wondering actually whether maybe Chapman couldn't have staged what sounds like potentially quite a funny scene of Lodovico coming to Lucretia, assuming it's a woman, and apparently more or less attempting a rape, because he clearly makes advances which she immediately hits him with. I mean, this is potentially quite funny, but it might have been considered inappropriate for a boy's company, just a bit too sexy.
It also perhaps just gives them an opportunity to do some fighting. With rapiers, they get to do a little mini sword fight at that point, which is sort of quite interesting, engaging. And we get a bit of verse in here. It occasionally gets a bit unclear where verse and prose begin and end. We've only really had verse in this play so far as a sort of comic verse of the Emilia and Aurelio sort of going, "Oh, we are so in love," kind of verse. So there's slightly different linguistic things going on here. Other thoughts? Short scene, so we don't have to linger on it. More for, I feel that's more about moving chess pieces around a lot of that. Act 4, Scene 4 then. Leonoro, Temperance, and Lionello enter.
Thou shalt not stay, sweet Temperance. Tell us the manner of our war, and we'll leave thee presently.
Why, that perilous man Lodovic, according to your appointment, was jump at 3 with me, just e'en full at your hour, muffled as I willed you, e'en your fashion and your very leg for all the earth, and followed me in so gingerly that by my troth I must needs say he was worthy the pleasure in. But in what a tasking was I when I perceived his voice, and when I saw my mistress and he together by the ears.
What, did thy mistress fight with him?
Oh, King of Heaven, she ran upon his naked weapon, the most finely that ever lived, and I ran away in a swoon for fear.
Has she a good courage?
It seems she is too honest for our companies. A little more, good Temperance.
And when he saw me, he called me Punk and Pandar and Doxy, and the vilest nicknames, as if I had been an arrant naughty pack.
'Tis no matter, Temperance, he's known and thou art known.
I thank heaven for it, and there's all indeed I can stay no longer.
Exit Temperance.
Farewell, honest Temperance. How is it possible Lodovico should fit all these circumstances without the confederacy and treachery of this beldam? Well, Lodovico must satisfy this doubt when I see him.
That will be at the May night show at Signor Honorio's.
I would not meet him there, I shall offend him. There I must needs be, and have thee disguised like a woman.
Me, sir?
No remedy. The Captain Quintiliano and I have devised it to gull his lieutenant, for thou shalt dance with him. We will thrust him upon thee, and then, for his courting and gifts, which we will tell him he must win thee withal, I hope thou wilt have enough wit to receive the tone and pay him again with the other. Come, Lionel, let me see how naturally thou canst play the woman.
Exit Leonoro.
Better than you think for.
Exit Lionello. With yes, so yes, the I think we're fairly confirmed. We can see where this is going. Everybody's going to be dressed. Well, in this case, they're going to be dressed in the correct way round. So it's in terms of the logic of the play, but still, of course, still played by a boy, and a boy's come to, yeah, it's all very Eric.
I was gonna say, I think it's basically like sort of making up for costume changes. So like they kind of, because earlier they got rid of Lucretia's, aka Lucretia's woman costume. Therefore, now someone else can take the sort of, I don't know, maybe they were low on a budget, so they just had to do it this way rather than a final reveal type thing. I don't know, or not.
Yeah, I suppose actually that's a consideration I hadn't thought for boys' company plays, because we were saying, boys' companies could, in theory, have as many women on stage as they like. But yeah, how many dresses do they have available within the company at any one time for that logic to be in play? Because I don't think that's a serious consideration, but it is a logistical question that I hadn't occurred, because you will presumably have a certain number of stock stuff, but you may not have all the right stock. And of course, the other problem with boys is they grow. I mean, this is the other costume question of, if they get bigger, because they'll suddenly have, if they get a growth spurt, then suddenly, well, you can't play this character anymore. You won't fit in the togs. Sorry, I'm just rambling now, but that's a fun train of thought. Lois.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got some clothes were given them by sort of cast-off clothes of aristocrats who liked their company. Some were bought from fripperies, which were second-hand stores. But the other thing about clothes is that they could expand. I mean, that's one thing about all these laces and so on. You actually can let a garment out fairly easily. I mean, Lynn would have a lot more to say about costumes, but it strikes me that they could get quite a lot of use out of something, and they also did an awful lot of remaking, and redoing clothes to make them work for different occasions.
Other thoughts? Again, a fairly short scene that largely reiterates many points that we've already had. Mark.
Yeah, to my knowledge, in that previous scene with Lucretia and Lodovico, Lucretia did not change outfits and would be wearing, some sort of nightgown, feminine nightgown. So yeah, just responding to, and I feel like that's interesting that this scene starts with, they're all boys dressed as something. Someone in women's clothes, Lodovico surrendering to her before she reveals, that her name's Lucretia. So I think that's interesting.
I think he knows who she is. I mean, I think he knows it's a man because of her reaction. But
yeah, saying the audience in that. Sorry, real quick. The audience in that first moment of just seeing him being like, "I surrender," wouldn't know yet. Presumably.
Yeah. No, it'd be terribly funny, actually. Yes, these two coming on, because the audience, presumably, if it's sufficiently dumb, will not have guessed that this is a man. But yeah, it would be a very funny scene. I mean, this guy coming on fighting with presumably a woman in a sort of nightgown. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a thing, because it has been foreshadowed, but it's not been foreshadowed a lot. And it's sort of the rule of thumb is you should throw some of a few more hints in. But Lucretia's been barely on stage in the entire play. It's quite possible everyone's just not only forgotten who she is, let alone who she's supposed to be, and in this context. Right, let's go into Act 4, Scene 5. Enter Quintiliano and Innocentio.
Come, Lieutenant, this nap has set a nap of sobriety upon our brains. Now, let's sit here and consult what course twere best for us to take in this dangerous mansion of man's life.
I am for you, Faith Captain, and you go to consult once.
I know it. Lieutenant, say then, what thinkst thou? We talked of employment, of action, of honour, of a company, and so forth.
Did we so, Captain?
Did we so? Arse, svoot! Wert thou drunk afore thou wentst to the tavern, that thou hast now forgotten it?
Cry you good mercy, good captain. I remember I'm your lieutenant.
Well, sir, and so thou shalt be called still, and I captain, though we never lead other company than a sort of court pots.
Shall we, captain? By the mass, then let's never have other company indeed.
Why, now thou'rt wise, and hast a mind transformed with main right. And to confirm thee, I will compare the noble service of a feast with the honourable service of the field, and then put on thy hand to which thou wilt.
Thank you, captain. But do you think that war is naught, sir?
Exceeding naught.
But why then, sir, take heed what you say, for 'tis dangerous speaking against anything that is not. I can tell you.
Thou sayest wisely, lieutenant. I will not then use the word naught, nor speak ill of either, but compare them both, and choose the better.
Take heed then, good captain, there be some prick-eared intelligencers conveyed into some wall or other about us.
If there were, I care not. For to say true, the first model of a battle was taken from a banquet, and first touching the officers of both. For the general of the field, there is the master of the feast. For the lieutenant general, the mistress. For the sergeant major, the steward. For the gentleman usher, the marshal. For master of the ordnance, the sewer, and all other officers.
Yet you're reasonable well, captain.
Then, for the preparation, as in a field is all kind of artillery, your cannon, your demi-cannon, culverins, falcons, sakers, minions, and such goodly ornaments of a field, I speak no hurt of him, thou seest, I'll have nothing to do with him.
Hold you still there, captain.
Besides other munition of powder and shot. And so, for the feast, you have your court cupboards planted with flagons, cans, cups, beakers, bowls, goblets, basins, and ewers, and a more glorious show, I wis, than the t'other. And yet I speak no hurt of the other.
No, I'll be sworn, captain.
Besides your munition of manchet, napery, plates, spoons, glasses, and so forth, then for your kitchen artillery, there shall you see all your brass pieces mounted in order as your beef pots, your chaldrons, your kettles, chafing dishes, ladles, spits, a more edifying spectacle than your cannon and culverin, and yet I speak no hurt of them neither.
No, captain, thus far I go with you.
Then, sir, as in the field the drum, so to the feast the dresser gives the alarm, yan tan tara fan tan tara tan.
To sin against, oh, how it stirs my stomach.
First then sets forward a wing of light horse, as salads, broths, sauces, stewed meats, and other kickshaws, and they give a charge. Then do the battle join, Captain Capon in white broth, Lieutenant Calf's Head.
That's my place.
Ancient Sirloin, a man of goodly presence and full of expectation, as your ancient ought to be. Then have you Sergeant Pie Meat, Corporal Coney, Lance Presado Lark, Gentleman Pancake, and all the species of a company.
Would we might fall to the fight once?
Why, now grows the fight hot, man. Now shall you see many a tall piece of beef, many a tough capon go down. And here's the trial of a man's stomach. All the while the artillery plays on both hands. The cannons lay about them, the flagons go off thick and threefold, and many a tall man goes halting off, some quite overthrown by horse and foot.
Oh, my heart bleeds.
That is thy teeth water. In conclusion, as the remnant of the feast, I mean such dishes as 'scaped the fury of the fight, if they be serviceable, are reserved to furnish out another day. If they be maimed or spoiled, they are sent abroad to relieve prisons and hospitals. So the remainder of the fight, if they be serviceable, they are reserved to supply a second field. For the fragments of the fight, the main soldiers, they are sent likewise to furnish prisons and hospitals. How sayest thou now, Lieutenant? Shall we to the feast or to the fight?
No fighting, good captain. To the feast, for God's sake.
Thou'rt of my mind right, and so will we presently march on to the sack of the Emperor's head, then to the May night feast and show at Signor Honorio's, and there will be a wench there, boy, a delicate young morsel, a kinswoman of Signor Honorio's, and her father's only child, he a mighty rich Clarissimo, and her God. Sorry about that.
Do we need to pause for a second? Or...
Sorry, I don't know what's going on. I've got everything on mute, but somebody's ringing my bell. Anyway, I think they've gone. So where shall I pick up from?
Just finish that sentence. You're nearly at the end.
Mighty rich Clarissimo, and her shalt thou court, win her, and wear her. Thou hast wit at will.
But shall that wench be her father's son and heir, Captain?
She shall be his heir, on mine honesty.
But shall not my mistress, your wife, be at that show?
She shall, and we could find her. Fannio has been abroad this hour to seek her. The ass is stepped into some corner or other, mourning for my absence.
Enter the plot. Enter Angelo and Franceschina in disguise.
See who comes here.
Come, coz, march fair. Methinks thou becomes to page excellent naturally. Cheer up thy heart, wench.
Kisses her.
Fie for shame! Kiss in the streets!
Why not? Truth seeks no corners. And 'twas a true love's kiss. So is this.
War riot dost thou mark, Lieutenant? God's pity, my husband!
Eggs, you and Franceschina and Angelo.
Zip, mon mari.
What were these, Captain?
Upon my life, the hindermost of them is a wench in man's attire. Didst thou not mark, besides his slabbering about her, her big thighs and her splay feet?
By the miskin, methought they were so indeed.
Life, thus hungry knave her squire could not hold in the open streets.
What should she be?
The doxy was muffled in her cloak. I had but a glimpse of her, but slight I will know her. She passes not so. Come, we'll follow. I'll beat the rogue and take away his whore from him.
And they exit. Okay, well that was a big lot of stuff, and it was like at the end of the scene, the actual plot happens, and it takes about 20 lines, and then we get Quintiliano goes off on one, and it's not the first time we've had Quintiliano going off on one in this play, and it's a nice little divertissement, and I'm sure we could record it separately as an interesting little subgenre of this flight of fancy, but it kills the play stone dead. Absolutely stone dead. In terms of, Act 4 has mostly been short scenes, stuffed plot, people moving on to the next thing, maybe the odd tweak and cut, but generally speaking it's moving ahead, and it just goes boomf. We just hit this wall, and it's like, no, we did this in Act 1 and Act 2. I think we might have done a bit of it in Act 3. Act 4, no, sorry, you're done. Mark, then Aliki.
Yeah, just a captain telling his lieutenant that he hates going to war is kind of funny, and the lieutenant being like, "Someone's gonna hear you," and like that's treason. That's kind of funny, but like this whole comparison just certainly didn't hold up 400 years later, Chapman.
No, it just goes on for a very, very long time. Aliki, then Alan.
I mean, maybe the kid playing Quintiliano was really, really good at set pieces like this, and everybody wanted to hear him do it.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. And the play is structured that way. We've had several little exchanges like this where we have these little scenes where, the two of them have obviously worked very hard on this scene. And isn't it lovely? They've done so well. They're adorable, clearly. But yeah, maybe not. Alan.
Yeah, I must admit what was going. Well, that sketch that you did last Christmas party, that'll go in well here.
Yeah, I mean, I as ever resist that they don't really have set pieces like that, but they do. They you develop shtick and you give it for performers to do, and you fit it within the logic of the play. But it is detachable in that sense. It is not moving the plot on at all. It's just we got this character. Let's see what he can do in that sense. Any other thoughts before we finish Act 4? Because we did lots of scenes. Lynn.
Yeah, Lily did this kind of thing decades before this, but it was usually 2 servants, and it was usually maybe a fourth the length of this. So, I mean, there's precedent for it. Its placement isn't really working. Like, and I mean, I totally agree. It's just like, oh, we're finally getting some plan, and then boom, you hit this like wall. Don't do that.
Okay, we're going to run a couple of scenes into each other because again, we've hit a pocket, I think, of action, and people are running in on and off, and it's quite fun when Angelo and Franceschina come on, and they're having a bit of a snog, and it's going, oh shit, my husband. That's quite nice, and then it's a little uncomfortable, I think, his description of her from that point onwards, but or the way that's working and the way that back and forth is going. I mean, who's dressed as who at this point? I've forgotten. Who's dressed as who? Because have I just got it the wrong way round? I've forgotten.
Franceschina's dressed as Aurelio.
Yeah. So, which suggests that he's describing Angelo in that moment. But anyway. Hijinks comedy moment happened. Act 4, Scene 6. Enter Angelo and Franceschina.
Courage, cuz. We've sailed the man of war out of sight, and here we must put into harbour. Hist! Ah, Emilia!
Enter Emilia above.
Oh, welcome, good Angelo.
Here, take in. Go. Get up, Lynsey. Wait! Take heed you slip not, cuz. Remember, you're short-heeled.
Hold fast, for God's sake!
She mounts.
Nay, hold you fast, you'll shame us all else. So Jove receive thy soul. I take away the ladder. Now, till you have deceived the promise, farewell. Remember your lesson, cuz.
Exit Angelo.
I'll warrant you.
And exit above with Emilia. Act 4, Scene 7. Enter Quintiliano and Innocentio.
How unhappily did we miss 'em? They slipped into some vaulting house, I hold my life.
Faith, it's good we missed them. She was some stale punk, I warned.
20 to 1, she is some honest man's wife, the parish, that steals abroad for a trimming, while he sits secure at home, little knowing, God knows, what hangs over his head, the poor cuckold esteeming her the most virtuous wife in the world. And should one tell him he had seen her dressed like a page, following a knave thus, I'll lay my life he would not believe it.
Why, no, Captain. Wives take all the faith from their husbands, and that makes them do so many good works as they do.
Mercy for that, faith, Lieutenant. Stand close.
And they retire. Enter Fannio and Giacomo.
Dress in man's apparel, sayest thou?
Thy mistress in man's apparel, I assure thee, and attended by Angelo.
What heaven I had seen her. Canst tell whither she went?
Full but into Lorenzo's house, and if thou knewest him, thou knowest there wherefore an ill-favoured trimming is her errand.
Very well, she trims my captain prettily. In the meantime, his head pays for all, and yet, alas, poor Hornstock, he thinks her to have no fault, but her too much dotage upon him. Well, my conscience will not let me keep her counsel. He shall know it.
Why, man, if both of us should tell him her fault, he will not believe us.
No, nor if he had seen it with his own eyes, I think. I shall never forget how the profound cockatrice hung on his sleeve today. and he should nod from her side, she'd follow him into the wars. One day should make an end of both their loves and lives, and then to see him, the Whittle, my captain, began to strut and battle the pride of his merits that so heightened her affection.
True, and how the foppesty, his lieutenant, stepped in to persuade with her to take it patiently, for friends must part. We came not all together, we must not all go together.
Well, it will not be for any man to follow him if this were known once.
Lord, how all the boys in the town would flock about him as he walks in the street as 'twere about a bagpipe, and hoot the poor cuckold out of his horn case.
Well, and I were worthy to give him counsel, he should e'en fare and well hang himself.
No, no, keep it from him, and say thou foundst her at a woman's labor.
Her labor. Captain's brows sweat while she labors.
If I were in thy case, I should laugh outright when I saw him.
That I dare not do. As often as he turns his back to me, I shall be here with him. That makes certain. Or when I follow him in his cheating stock, Innocentio, in the streets, I shall imagine still I am driving an ox and an ass before me and cry, "Flew, hoo, flew."
Right, Captain, take all.
Not a word for the world, for if we should take notice of his words, the slave would deny all. Leave it to me to sift it in private. Now, sir, what news with you? Where's your mistress, that you can range thus at your pleasure?
In health, sir, I trust.
Come forward, you rogue, you. Come forward. Whither creep you behind so? Where's your mistress, sir?
At a poor woman's labour, sir.
Very well, sir. Come, Lieutenant, go you afore, and do you follow him, sir.
What, afore my captain up, sir? You shall pardon me.
Afore, you rogue, afore!
And they exit. Okay, so I did spend a lot of that scene going, have these characters just come on stage to tell us the plot again for no readily apparent reason? No, there was a plot reason. There was a plot. They had to be overheard. I still think you could do it quicker. I don't think we need... Let's have them interrogate them off stage and get the full story or something like that. I did quite like the little bit of irony that Quintiliano and Innocentio are doing at the beginning of just going, oh, I bet I know what they're doing, cuckolding some man, and it's yeah, that's a nice little bit, and the shape of Act 4 is good. I like the general sense that we now have a farce going on. We have people running off, taking off clothes, disguising, the bit when they're climbing up the ladder, and it's like, shift, get up. It's just, I'm not very good in getting. I've not done a rope ladder before. Rope ladders are really hard work as well. Yeah, they can go horribly out of control if you're not careful. Yeah, the shape of this act I really like. I don't think it'd take a lot to get it to fly. I think you just need to hack out most of Quintiliano's set piece moment and then just trim everything else a little bit. I think this bit works. This bit works. It's just still too many notes. Still too many notes, Mozart. But yeah. Feeling in a better place than we were the last two sessions. Okay, thoughts on the room? As back and forth natter between Fannio and Giacomo, who we are so engaged with as characters, who as characters are clearly there to just move the plot along. Hello, plot device number one. How are you?
Yeah, I don't even remember Giacomo. I don't even remember him.
No. I remembered Fannio because I found the name moderately amusing. But apart from that, I have no memory of who they are. That's it. Okay, any more? Otherwise, we'll dive into Act 5. Okay, Act 5 is where it will get really confusing because we'll probably be talking to ourselves. Apologies, I hope it doesn't happen too often. Act 5, Scene 1. Enter Honorio, Lorenzo, Gaspero, and Angelo.
Signor Lorenzo and Gaspero, you're very welcome. We shall have good company and sport to entertain you ere long, I hope. Shall we not, Angelo?
Yes, sir, I've invited all you commanded me.
This is the honest man, indeed, that took the pains to come for me.
And for me also.
No pains, but pleasure, sir. I was glad I had such good means to be known to your worship.
Nay, I have known you before to be the servant of Signor Honorio here, I take it.
Not my server, Signor Lorenzo, but my son.
Oh! Your son Aurelio's servant. Oh, believe me, you or your son, in mine opinion, though I say it before him, made good choice of him. For he hath a good, honest face, and to a man of judgment, I tell you, that's as good as a good surety for him. I will be better acquainted with you, sir. Pray, you give me your hand.
Both my hand and heart, sir, shall be ever at your service.
Thanks, my good friend. I'll make thee laugh anon, Angelo.
I thank your worship. You've done so often.
A notable wag, Signor Gasparo.
How curiously Lorenzo thinks he carries the matter.
How now, gentlemen, is't a merry secret that you smile so?
No secret, Signor Lorenzo, but a merry conceit we were thinking on to furnish our show anon, if it had been thought all in time.
What was that, I pray?
Marry, sir, we had good sport today with Snail, the chimney sweeper.
Had you so, sir?
That ever was.
Lord, that I had been amongst you. But what more of him, sir?
Marry, sir, we were thinking how we might merrily deceive our company that is to come, if we could have gotten him some magnifico's suit of the city, whom for his little stature and lean face he might resemble, that in that habit he might have stolen some kind favours from the ladies to make him amends and please him for the anger we put him in.
Ah, it would have made excellent merriment.
You're his best master, sir. And if it pleases you to send me for him by some token, I'll go for him. Otherwise, he will not come to these gentlemen.
Shall he come, gentlemen?
If you please, sir.
Why then, hark thee, Angelo, not for the world.
Think you me such an ass, sir?
Shall he have one of my little brother's suits and come in amongst the dames for him?
If you could, it would fit him exceedingly.
Oh, much! Now laugh, Angelo. What gentleman was that I spied aloft with my daughter, thinkst thou?
You cannot, sir. I beseech your worship. Who was it?
Oh, Frank in man's apparel, Angelo.
Oh, wonderful.
We cannot invent a token. For my love, Angelo.
Oh, excellent.
We will hit it anon, gentlemen.
At your leisure, sir.
The swaggerer, her husband, had note of it by his page, and yet the same page hath persuaded him since that 'twas but a gullery.
'Tis a notable crack. His master hath such a pure belief in his wife that he's apt to believe any good of her.
Oh, true, Angelo. Enough for this time. Thou shalt make as if thou wentst for Snail, and return without him, saying thou canst not find him.
Agreed, sir.
Now, gentlemen, we have devised a wile to bring Snail amongst us, and I have given Angelo order for a suit for him that is my little brother's, and him he shall counterfeit. Go, Angelo, seek him out.
I will, sir.
Exit Angelo.
Thank you for this, good Signor Lorenzo.
It will quicken the company well.
Yes. Before other people come in, I'd just like to say the business here is actually quite good. I quite like this. It's just like, hi, because everybody knows what they're doing here, and it's like, oh, wouldn't it be lovely if that chimney sweeper came in dressed as and it's like, no, it would be terrible. It's a terrible idea. Don't let it happen. And all the back and the forth and the little sides, and it's just pretend to be laughing. Ha 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 ha. That's got real actor business potential that I quite like. So, yeah, again, we are definitely moving into stuff going on, and it also means all of the stuff we didn't find desperately exciting earlier has a purpose later in the play as well, which hopefully has additional payoff. So that means we sort of have to rethink perhaps some of our thoughts about the earlier business as to how that plays and how that functions in the script. So yes, now it gets more confusing.
Yeah.
Enter Emilia, Lionello in a woman's dress, Franceschina, and another woman.
For their sakes and yours I have done it, gentlemen, and see, the fair flock come upon us.
Welcome, fair ladies, but especially you, lady, that are so mere a stranger. Signor Lorenzo, you know young Leonoro?
Very well, sir, a gallant spark.
And I think you know his father.
Know him? I' faith, sir, there was a reveller, I shall never see man do his lofty tricks like him while I live.
This gentlewoman is his niece, sir.
His niece? She shall do herself wrong not to be acquainted with her dear uncle's companion.
Kisses her.
You know not this gentlewoman, sir?
Not very well, sir, indeed, but entertainment must be given. Mercy, Frank, for thy man's apparel, a plague of all swaggering husbands. Nay, I must forth, i' faith. Signor Honorio, this is for your sake. Am I not a kind help to your entertainment?
An exceeding kind one, sir, and I exceedingly thank you.
Enter messenger.
The maskers are come, sir.
Do you and your fellows attend them in?
We will, sir.
Exit messenger.
Sit, gentle ladies, till the maskers raise you to dance.
And enter Aurelio, Leonoro, Quintiliano, and Innocentio in a mask dancing.
Welcome, gallants. Oh, the room's too scant. A whole gentleman.
See how womanly my boy looks, Quintiliano.
'Twill be rare sport. Lieutenant, that sweet wench in the branched gown is the heir I told thee of.
God's me, I'll to her and kiss her.
Oh, no, you must not unmask.
No, I'll kiss her with my mask and all.
No, Lieutenant, take her and court her first, and then kiss her.
Sure.
Sure, slave.
There's thy wife too, Quintiliano.
True. Little knows she I am so near her. I'll single her out and try what entertainment a stranger may find with her.
Do so, and we'll take up the other.
They dance. Enter Angelo.
Can by no means find snail, sir.
Worse luck, but what remedy?
Gramercy, Angelo, but Signor Honorio, methinks I miss one flower in this female garland.
Who's that?
Your niece, Lucretia.
By soul, 'tis true. What's the reason, Angelo? Lucretia is not here.
I know no reason but her own will, sir.
There's somewhat in it, certain.
They dance again.
Did you see the play today, I pray?
Oh, no, but I see the fool in it here.
Do you so, forsooth? Where is he, pray?
Not far from you, sir, but we must not point at anybody here.
That's true indeed, cry mercy, forsooth. Do you know me through my mask?
Oh, not I, sir. She must have better skill in baked meats than I, that can discern a woodcock through the crust.
That's true indeed. Yeah, I thought I'd try you.
They dance. Enter Lodovico.
What, nephew Lodovic? I thought you had been one of the maskers.
I use no masking, sir, with my friends.
No, Signor Lodovic, but you are very truant in your school of friendship that comes so late to your friend.
Somewhat has crossed him, sure. Somewhat shall cross him. Lodovico, let me speak with you.
With me, sir.
You are the man, sir, I can scarce say the gentleman, for you have done a wrong the credit of a gentleman cannot answer.
Would I might see his face that durst say so much.
Observe him well.
Unmasks.
He shows his face that will prove it when thou darest.
How now, Leonoro? You forget yourself too much to grow outrageous in this company.
Aurelio, do not wrong me and yourself. I undertake your quarrel. This man hath dishonored your kinswoman, Lucretia, whom, if I might, I intended to marry.
Some error makes you mistake, Leonoro, I assure myself.
What interruption of our sport is this, gentlemen?
Are not my nephew and Leonoro friends?
He charges me with dishonoring his mistress Lucretia.
By Our Lady, Lodovico, the charge touches you deeply. You must answer it.
I only desire I may, sir, and then will refer me to your censures.
Well, nephew, well, will you never leave this your haunt of fornication? I school him and do all I can, but all is lost.
Good uncle, give me leave to answer my other accuser, and then I'll descend and speak of your fornication as the last branch of my division.
Very well. Be brief.
I will, sir. The ground upon which this man builds his false imagination is his sight of me at Honorio's back gate since dinner, where, muffled in my cloak, kind Madam Temperance, the attendant of Lucretia, from the terrace wafted me to her with her hand, taking me, as now I understand, for this honest gentleman. I, not knowing what use she had put me to, obeyed the attraction of her signal, as gingerly as she bade me, a plague upon her gingerly, till she walked into Lucretia's chamber, where Lucretia, lying asleep on her bed, I thought it rudeness to wake her, and imagining when she waked she had something to say to me, attended her leisure at my ease, and lay down softly by her, when, having chaster and simpler thoughts than Leonoro imagines, because he measures my waist by his own, in the very coldness and dullness of my spirit, I fell suddenly asleep, in which my fancy presented me with the strangest dream that ever yet possessed me.
Pray God you did but dream, nephew.
You shall know that by knowing the event of it.
Go to, pray let us hear it.
Methought Lucretia and I were at maw, a game, uncle, that you can well skill of.
Well, sir, I can so.
You will the more muse at my fortune, or my oversights, for my game stood, methought, upon my last two tricks, when I made sure of the set, and yet lost it, having the varlet and the 5-finger to make 2 tricks.
How had that been possible?
That had been no misfortune, sure, but plain oversight.
But what was the reason you thought you lost it, sir?
You shall hear. She had in her hand the ace of hearts, methought, and a coat card. She led the board with her coat. I played the varlet, and took up her coat, and meaning to lay my 5-finger upon her ace of hearts, up starts a quite contrary card. Up she rises withal, takes me a dash of the mouth, drew a rapier he had laid by him, and out of the doors we went together by the ears.
A rapier he had laid by him?
What? A she turned to a he? Dost thou not dream all this while, nephew?
No, nor that time neither, though I pretended it. Let him be fetched. I warrant you he will show as good at cards as the best in you, to prove him an heir male, if he be the eldest child of his father.
This is exceeding strange. Go, Angelo, fetch her and her handmaid.
I will, sir, if her valour be not too hot for my fingers.
And exit Angelo.
But such a disguise be made good all this while without my knowledge. To say the truth, she was a stranger to me, her father being a Sicilian, fled thence for a disastrous act, and coming hither grew kindly acquainted with me, and called me brother at his death, committing his supposed daughter to my care and protection till she were restored to her estate in her native country.
Was he in hope of it?
He was, and in near possibility of it himself, had he lived a little longer.
Into Angelo and Lucretio in man's dress and Temperance.
Here's the gentlewoman you talked of, sir. Nay, you must come forward too, grave Mistress Temperance.
How now, sir? Who wants gentility now, I beseech you?
Who have we here?
Stand not amazed, nor disparage him. You see, sir, this habit truly doth suit my sex, howsoever my hard fortunes have made me a while reject it.
What hard fortunes?
Those you know of my father, sir, who feared my following of him in my native likeness to the haven, where he by stealth embarked us, would have discovered him, his offence being the slaughter of a gentleman that would have slain him.
But why did you not tell me you were betrothed before this misfortune happened to a young gentleman of story called Theagenes?
I told you I was betrothed to one Theagene, not Theagenes, who indeed was a woman. And yet, whoever had seen that Theagene since might have taken him for a man. Do you know her, gentlewoman? It seems you will not know her.
Yes, and eloquently attempting to play the both halves of this particular love match, unmasking and embracing Lucretio. Embrace yourself.
Oh, darling.
Hark, how my boy plays the knave with her.
A noble rogue's foot, Lieutenant, wilt thou suffer thy nose to be wiped of this great air?
Slight sir, you're no handkerchief, are you?
Prithee forbear. Not more happy than unlooked for is this dear accident. Adopted and noble father, this is the gentlewoman to whom I told you I was betrothed. The happy news she had to relate to me made her a traveller. The more search of her passage made her a page, and her good fortune obtained her this honest gentleman to her master, who, I thank him, I being as he supposed me, loved me. Accept us both for your children.
Most gladly, and with no less care than mine own protect you.
Sfoot, how now, Leonoro? New fireworks?
Now, sir, who wants gentility? This is a gentlemanly part of you to keep our wench in a page's furniture.
It was more than I knew, sir, but this shall be a warning to me while I live, how I judge of the instrument by the case again.
Nay, it is you, friend Lodovico, that are most to blame, that holding the whole feminine sex in such contempt would yet play the pick-purse and steal a poor maid's maidenhead out of her pocket, sleeping.
'Twas but to cozen me.
And to be before me in love.
And to laugh at me.
Nay, jest not at me, sweet gentles. I used plain and mannerly dealing. I neither used the brokerage of any, as you know who did, Leonoro, nor the help of a ladder to creep in at a chamber window, as you know who did, Aurelio, nor did I case myself in buckram and cry chimney sweep. Where are you, uncle? But I was trained to it by this honest matron here.
Meddle not with me, sir.
I am beholding to her. She was loath to have me lead apes in hell.
Look that you keep promise with me, lady. When will thy husband be from home? Not so soon as I would wish him, but whensoever you shall be welcome. I very kindly thank you, lady. Gods me, I took you for Signor Placentio. What, thou liest in my throat, thou knewst me as well as myself.
What, Signor Quintiliano and friend Innocentio, I look not for you here, and you're much the better welcome.
Thanks, Dad Honorio. And lives my little squire? When shall I see thee at my house, lad? Oh, a plague on your house! I was there too lately.
See, lordlings, here's two will not let go till they have your consents to be made surer.
By my soul, and because old Gaspero here has been so cold in his love suit, if she be better pleased with Aurelio, and his father with her, heaven give abundance of good with him.
So you stand not upon too much goods, I say. Not too much upon goods. I say amen.
Faith, use him as your son and heir, and I desire no more.
So will I of mine honor. Are you agreed, youths?
And
most humbly gratulate your high favors. Faith and Jove give him joy together for my part.
And yet, here is another nail to be driven. Here's a virtuous matron, Madam Temperance, that is able to do much good in a commonwealth, a woman of good parts, sells complexion, helps maids to services, restores maidenheads, brings women to bed and men to their bedsides.
By my faith, but savoir grace, sir.
Hath drinks for love and gives the diet.
Why, a lady, and that's not amiss for you, sir.
For me, with a plague to you.
No, nor for any man that's not sound, I mean, sir. Sfoot, masters, these be good parts in the old wench. Wilt thou have her, lieutenant? She'll be a good stay to the rest of thy living. The gallants will all honour thee at thy house, I warrant thee.
Oh God, Captain, I care not if I have.
Well, young gentleman, perhaps it should not be the worst for you. Why, law, thy virtues have won her at first sight. She shall not come to the empty, for I'll promise thee that I'll make her able to bid any gentleman welcome to a piece of mutton and a rabbit at all times. By Our Lady, a good ordinary. Thou'lt visit sometimes, Dad?
That I will, if faith, boy, in authority-wise.
Why then, strike hands, and if the rest be pleased, let all hands strike, as these have struck afore, and with round echoes make the welkin roar.
And end. Okay, there's a lot. I let that run because I thought that there's no point trying to pick that apart too much. Well done, everyone who did have to talk to themselves. Not quite as bad as I suspected it might be. Okay, I really quite like actually the use of the mask here. I actually think often when people use, "Oh, I'm wearing a mask, you don't know who I am," and it's a bit rubbish. I actually think it's quite nice here because it means that people get to sort of reveal who they are in a way that actually feels, because we've got basically a series of ta-da moments at the end of the play, and actually we have ta-da moments which are basically no, I'm me. As we have some big spectacular ta-da moments of going, I'm a totally different person. I am your long lost love. Yeah, you put an S on the end of my name and misunderstood, and things. And then it's just no, I'm your husband, or I'm your wife, or whatever it is, and it actually sort of works, and it's sort of quite fun, and it sort of bounces around, and okay, some bits again, I think as ever, there's a fair amount of little bits of tweaking and changing here and there, but again, we've got these random dance bits. Was it Aliki? Did you say it's another Muppet Show dance, isn't it? That's exactly what was in my head. Round they go. We haven't done a Muppet Show reference for ages. Okay. So yeah. It's it tidies up the play. I mean, we've got the sort of structural problem that we have the big reveal in the final scene of this subplot that actually hasn't really been very dominant in the whole play, and the plots that have been dominant in the play just sort of quietly just put them to one side, just forget about them, because it's like, you know, the whole snail thing actually doesn't really go anywhere there at the end, which is a bit of a shame. It's like I thought that was going to go into a thing where they were going to force him to go off and come back on a snail, and just because everyone was asking for it, and then it doesn't happen, which is a shame. I kind of feel that we need to make that happen or something. So yeah, I've witted on. Thoughts in the room, Lois?
Yeah, but I thought that was actually because we'd read The Revenger's Tragedy so recently. That was kind of like that bit, which actually was written later, of course, where I think Vindice is told, or Hippolito is told to go and bring the villain, who in fact is Vindice, who is right there on the stage, and has to make up something quickly and go off and say, no, I can't bring him because he's dead drunk. But it's the same sort of situation here. I mean, you've got to go off and bring somebody who is actually here on stage and who doesn't want to go off and come back in disguise. I mean, it's so I did think something rather funnier might be coming up than actually happened.
I I do think we might be able to manage it to be I think there's something that could be manoeuvred out of that without the need for additional dialogue or something, because there's a lot of popping in and out as well. We had a few scenes earlier with people, with Lorenzo and what's his face nipping in and out of the house, and there are nice little popping bits of business that I think could be got out of it. And also, just what are they dancing to? What's the dance?
Yeah.
Lois again.
Yeah, they make a lot of the fact that Lorenzo is obviously played by a very small actor. I mean, it must be someone who is quite well known. I know there's one other play, I think it's Cynthia's Revels, where there are three boys arguing at the beginning about who shall speak the prologue, and they draw lots, and one of them says, the shortest is come to the shortest. And he's also the one that everybody seems to like best. So, or they think the audience likes best. So there must have been, some actor like that, because they make a great deal of how small Lorenzo is. And yeah, you could perhaps do something with some other small actor. Yeah, the other thing that's funny here is that Quintiliano seems not only to be a cuckold, but a wittol as well. In other words, a contented cuckold, because he seems to have talked himself into the idea that everything is okay. And even when his wife, thinking he's someone else, says, "Oh yeah, I wish he wouldn't come back. Yeah, come any old time." He then actually persuades himself that she knew who he was, which is the kind of classic line that somebody else gives in that kind of situation. "Oh, of course I knew you." Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we've got there's a whole series of sort of little backs and forths, and it's like Honorio is there to sort of just to be the there to sort of bless everybody where everything's going. It's sort of like it's not really been a part in the play very much. It's just sort of been there, and he's just there to say, "Yeah, this is how. Is everyone happy with the end story? End of thank you very much," and sort of has that sort of mechanical role to it all. And even no one seems desperately bitter. It's like the Emilia plot line. He sort of goes, "Yeah, well, Gaspero doesn't seem that fussed, does he? So yeah, all right." It's like there wasn't really a proper objection raised to this romance at all.
Gaspero doesn't say a thing.
No.
Yeah.
It's well, Faith and Jove give them joy together for my part. It's like I can't be asked. It clearly wasn't working. It's just and it just feels like that's not coming from a character place. That's coming from a plot place. Again, we finished ridiculously early for the number of words that we've done. This text moves. So, it's a long play for a comedy, 24,000 words. That's, longer than some tragedies. But it doesn't half shift. And I think if once you've actually got used to the slightly odd syntax and some of the odd phrasing, I think, rehearse it a bit, it would move even faster, actually. And that also, on top of all the stuff we want to cut. At the moment, the production I have in my head is only about 75 minutes, 90 minutes without an interval. We're talking about where do you put an interval. I don't think we need one. I think we cut this down so much. Act 4 and Act 5, by and large, can be left, with one exception, pretty much as is, just minor trims and one big trim. And then we just conflate as much out of Act 1, 2, and 3 as we can, because doesn't half not go anywhere for a long time. So yeah, I kind of feel like once I said this the other day. I think it was off camera. We were talking about when we were reading the Antiquary, where we were fantastically bored for the first third of the play. Then we got sort of into it, and then the ending sort of landed quite well. I think for all the untidiness, there is a resolution here that sort of functions. I don't think it's the best play in the universe, but it functions actually towards the end. And I kind of don't think you can cut the plot line, but maybe you can. The thoughts on cutting plot lines. I think we don't have an ending if we cut the the Lucretio plot line, because that's the ending. And that's a bit awkward, really, unless they all just have a dance and an ease up and everyone just goes home happy. Anyway, I'm going to basically go into final thoughts in a moment. I'll go to Alan, and then I'll go into final thoughts around the room, I think.
Just wondering, the last couple of lines before Quintiliano doing what's not signposted as being an epilogue, but serves that purpose. I just wonder whether there's supposed to be a familial relationship between Quintiliano and Lorenzo. Because you've got that line, thou visit sometimes, Dad. That I will if faithful and authority wise.
I'm assuming that's just there's something wrong with the script, or it feels weirdly out of place. I don't know, Lois. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, well, that seems to be tied in with marrying Temperance off to Innocentio, doesn't it? Which is a really weird ending as well. And then is the idea that Temperance is a bawd anyway, and that they'll, she'll come in really handy. Or, I don't know. There's something. There's a weirdly amoral feeling about this whole ending.
Which I do quite like, and I say for once I'm not that fussed. It's not like we come to the ending and I hate all of the pairing offs. On the whole, it all seems fine. I think I'd like to shave some of the edges off some of the nastier aspects about Lodovico. There are some problems with his actions, which I think we can quietly massage out, and just tidy that up.
Yeah, you could do a lot with Lodovico. I mean, that whole last speech about how, he really does seem to have been, he must have been trying to do something pretty unforgivable to the supposed woman there. And then when they talk about how he doesn't really like women, you could really, you could certainly do something with that.
Yeah, I'm thinking if it's a comedy, remove it, because it's not going to get a laugh, and that's the problem with comedies. You gotta keep the audience happy, otherwise it's not a comedy anymore. So yeah, and there's a lot of words to cut from him, so I think that's part of the job of doing that and the fixing element of the play. Okay, final thoughts. I'll go to someone who's been here before. Rather than someone, we've got quite a few new people just coming into the end of the play, so you might be a bit lost. I'll go to Lynn first. Lynn, now that we've reached the end, can we see a route through?
I got very little between being under the weather and the play itself. I really haven't been able to even follow, let alone super engage with it. One production idea, since it does look like it could benefit from some pretty heavy-handed cutting, down to maybe even one act, you might do an early modern evening with, there are some short tragedies, like I think the Yorkshire tragedy is quite short. They're like two plays in one. So maybe you could do a one-act tragedy, have an intermission, and then do a one-act comedy from this period. That might be a production idea. That's about all I've got.
Oh, I like that, because Yorkshire tragedy, for all it sort of does actually require, outside of the core unit, which is actually quite small, an irritatingly large number of people potentially, because you've got goodness knows how many gentlemen and servants and random, 1, 2, and 3 turn up, and it's not like they're actually quite difficult to conflate. So to pair it with something that also needs a large cast and to justify the size of the cast, that would be quite a nice idea. I quite like that. I don't know if I'd get it that short, but it definitely could end up being quite short. Yeah, more a taster than a full production, maybe. Taster menu of Chapman. Here's our sample platter. I'll go to Lynsey next. You've only been here for this session. How are you finding Quintiliano and Temperance? In terms of, maybe it's easier to say the characters as they leap out, how playable they are, or thoughts about them, if that's a good way of going for things.
Yeah, I enjoyed kind of reading both of them. I think there's there's a lot to be got out of them. Yes, taster platter. All that stuff about the food, versus the battle, that whole kind of set piece, would obviously have to go. But it was fun to read. So, and other than that, I had absolutely no idea what was going on. I think this is one for having people, wearing color-coded costumes and, signs with their real names on them and all that sort of stuff. It just...
Yeah, I think the production really needs a very clear idea what's going on, because the audience doesn't have a clue. Yeah, and I'm interested actually in some of these set pieces, some of these effectively two-handers actually of just treating them as separate exercises as well, because we've got a podcast, so we could do Quintiliano almost as an episode in of itself, and that might be quite interesting, because I say in a performance, it's just it's just not on. It's just not on. It's too weird. Eric, you've missed the sandwich meat. You got the bread. You missed the middle session, so you've had the beginning and the end. How was it for you?
It was weird. I feel like this is one of those, like, it was either trying to be a parody of something and just flopped, or it was trying to be a comedy and still flopped. But it has some funny moments and some build up, but then you need to cut a lot of the build up to make it funny. Otherwise it's just like sitting there listening to someone explaining the plot for 20 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. Although it might be that we're just, because we're coming into it cold, it just seems that way, and then in production it would even out or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, we've had this problem before with this structure of comedy, is that it takes a long time to get going, and once it does, Johnson does this, other playwrights do this as well. Once you get to the catastrophe, it's all ticking along lovely, but you've got to get there, and this play does not get there for such a long time. The first 3 acts were hard work, genuinely hard work. Some oases that I enjoyed, but otherwise, and that's a problem for us today, I think, is because we have intervals. We have an interval, and we've got to persuade the audience to come back for the second half to go, no, honest, it's good. That's tough. Kyle, similarly here today.
Yes.
Potentially gone tomorrow. How was it for you?
Feeling a bit confused. And I think what Eric said also kind of resonated with me, and what a lot of people have said. I was thinking, this is Chapman's Homer, right? That's who this is. And so I was, and reading my part, I felt like I started to see some kind of classical development of a character, but it didn't go anywhere, and then it didn't add to the humor. In some ways, it was almost like conflicting with the humor, weirdly. I mean, just even in my own little spot, which was very, not much part of everything. So, I just felt kind of overwhelmed and confused by it all. So it's complex.
I mean, and it's not our first Chapman comedy. We've done a couple, and we have enjoyed bits and pieces of them. I don't think they've ever been an overwhelming success. I seem to recall Gentleman Usher went down quite well, but I could just be imagining that. And I think the Humorous Days Mirth didn't land brilliantly, but I think there was some good stuff in it. I think there was the humor's element sometimes doesn't land. But I think he's going to move. He is. I believe his career trajectory is he is moving away from comedy, and maybe he's just bored with it.
There were things I liked, like the rope, and the costume change. I mean, things that could be fun. Yeah.
And we are in sort of disguise alley at the moment. There's quite a few disguise plays that have been happening in the last few years, with in terms of chronology. We're not quite sure precisely where to place this play. It's in that sort of area. Aliki, you also have been here for this session. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I had a pretty good time. I didn't have to do the tedious setup, and I sort of picked up more or less what was going on, at least with my characters, because it was relatively straightforward and wasn't that confused with other people's storylines and who was who and what sex they were and all of that. I also remember The Gentleman Usher fondly, and I remember it had some really good, clever physical setups. And I could see that here too, a lot of the running off and rushing off and go, we've just missed them, where have they gone, kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's something to be mined out of this.
Yeah, once we hit fast territory, it moved quite well. Alan, any final thoughts in terms of moving this towards a stage?
I think, quite honestly, there's an awful lot of implied physical business or just groupings of people on the stage, which would actually make an awful lot more sense. There's a number of lines which are marked as being asides, which I think are actually a side conversation
Yes,
between
no,
two
those
characters on
were obviously
stage,
aside conversations. Yes,
rather than the sides to the audience,
Mm.
which threw me a bit when I hit one of those. And I think, there's probably enough scope for action in it to make it come a bit more alive once you remove some of the more turgid material from the earlier bits.
Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I still only have the haziest idea of how that ending all worked out, but I don't think it really matters. I got very confused by the fact that Lorenzo gave his consent to Aurelio marrying his daughter because he was like, oh, he's your son, but surely he knew that beforehand. I don't know. Maybe obviously he didn't. I got kind of confused. I do think you could maybe cut that. You would have a very choppy ending if you cut the lovers in disguise bit, that plot line, but I don't know. I think it might be worth doing actually, because it just doesn't serve. I mean, it's very fun in that final scene, but it just serves no purpose up until that point, and it's two actors on stage, who you're paying that like you don't need to pay otherwise. But yeah, I thought it was like mildly entertaining. It got way better today. I felt, and I think what I said yesterday holds true. Normally I am so disappointed with the endings of comedies. This one's kind of fine. It's slightly random and crazy, but I don't dislike that. But it's actually, in some ways it's far more stageable, I think, in some ways for a modern audience than some of the other ones we've done, because it's actually, the problem is, okay, there's too many words. There's some misogyny and racism that you would cut, but a lot of the words you just cut for clarity. And also what we were saying yesterday about how I think this would really come to life with physical comedy, and what Lynsey was saying about everyone would need to be very clearly demarcated in their costume so that you knew who was who when they weren't in disguise. I think this could work. It's not the best play I've ever read, but I think it could work quite well in a contemporary. When I say contemporary staging, I mean for a contemporary audience, not a contemporary staging. I don't think that would work at all.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you're talking about, if we cut out that plot line, the ending would feel a bit there, but it is the problem that it is actually quite tightly plotted. When I was trying to explain the plot to everyone before we started, it actually realizing how interlocked everything is, because if you don't have that plot line, why does Lodovico go off station? And then who is Temperance? Because Temperance doesn't really have a role anymore in a meaningful way. And you just, if you pull one thread out, actually, it's quite irritating, because it's like, okay, you can massage out some of the minor characters, like the minor servant characters at the end. You could find a better way, but you could elide one or two here or there. But actually, it's all actually quite well plotted. It's just not as well executed in terms of dialogue. So it'd be quite hard to change the shape. That's not a reason not to try, but he's not made it easy for us. It would be more easy to remove. No, you can't do that either. Anyway, Mark, any final thoughts?
Yeah, briefly, you were saying it'd be more easy to remove. Like, my mind was going through that, especially when Lynn was suggesting doing a super short version, and I was like, can you take out Lorenzo's plot, which starts the play? I don't know. Again, it does impact the other plots quite a bit, but yeah, I think having been here for all three sessions, I was struggling in this last one to keep track of what exactly was happening in certain points, especially around okay, what's Angelo's idea of who's dressing up as who? Who's supposed to be who in Angelo's kind of scheming? And then when Quintiliano sees Angelo and Franceschina what does he think he's seeing?
Mm.
And then I didn't even realize that Quintiliano and Innocentio were overhearing the conversation that they were overhearing until they came in. Even when they started talking, I didn't realize they were responding to that. I thought they were just having a side conversation or something. And a lot of that will come through more clearly in staging, of course. But I also feel like there is a lot of references to characters where they're not using their names that I feel like tweaking some of those words just to more clearly clarify who's talking about who would go far in making the relations between characters and all that more clear.
Yes, I mean it doesn't help that this play isn't heavy on stage directions. Actually, there aren't a lot beyond just general entrances and exits, and there are moments where you're going, okay, no, there's more going on there. And that moment when they retire, they don't exit, they retire upstage to overhear some things, and it's just like, when we're reading it cold, it's just that's not immediately clear what's going on. That does sometimes happen in other plays as well, but tidying things here and there is good. Lois, any final thoughts?
Have we yet read The Blind Beggar of Alexandria?
Yes, we have.
Yeah, because I think that was Chapman's first comedy and his first big hit. And of course, that is a real disguise comedy. I mean, it's associated with the kind of so-called quick change artist type play. And I think he got, he thought he was really good on disguise plays. This seems to be written according to a kind of theory of comedy, as Johnson's plays were, a notion about having lots of strands and tying them all more and more intricately together. And then, the denouement where you untie everything. And he sometimes does it better than this, I think. To me, I think if one were going to do a Chapman play, a Chapman comedy, I'm not sure if this is the one to pick, but I think
we don't pick them. They just come around on the revolve.
Yeah. No, I mean, if out of this whole lot, we were to stage something. I think the only other one we haven't read is All Fools. I'm not sure if there are any other comedies by Chapman.
I think All Fools is pretty much our last pucker comedy. Yeah.
Right. Because they all have certain points in common anyway. But that scene where Quintiliano overhears. Surely what he overhears is a lot of stuff that should make him furious, and it doesn't, because he doesn't want to have to fight anybody. I mean, it's part of the Milles Gloriosus topos. Just as later on, he doesn't want to have to be angry with his wife, I think, although it was really hard to follow it. I mean, sometimes I think Chapman is being quite subtle in a way. I mean, letting one line do the work of a lot. And then there are others where somebody explains at great length some complicated plot thing and who's supposed to be thinking what about whom. I feel the proportions are not too good here. I suspect it needed one more revision, which he just didn't have time to do because he had to get it off to the printer.
Yeah. Or all sorts. Yeah, we can never be absolutely certain what is a performance script, what is a what script, what is a what script, what happened to the script on the way to the forum. So it's always slightly difficult to know. Okay, well, I think we kicked the tires on this one fairly hard. We've got a sense of how much pressure we've got. I think a massive cut and give it another run. That would be an interesting exercise, though. Of course, the question is now, what do you cut? And how far and how much, and so series of exercises on. Maybe I'll just get some people together and say, right, you have to cut 5,000 words, you have to cut 10,000 words, you have to cut 15,000 words, and see what we have at the end. That might be an interesting exercise. Anyway, we will be back with more of such things, and you can always join us by coming into this room and joining us to read plays. There are sign-up forms always available on our website, beyondshakespeare.org, on the Get Involved section or the Exploring section. For some reason I have two sections with the same information on it on the website. It's just I've just not deleted one of the pages. It's very inefficient. I don't know why I've done it that way. There was a reason. There was something else I needed to do in one of them, and I thought I'd put them. It's very, very complicated. It's not at all. It's very simple. You just turn up to do a form and join us if you so wish. Otherwise, you can continue watching these videos as they come out every week. All that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Will you never leave this your haunt of fornication?